Now, every party needs a warrior, but Garrick Reed, he's not just swinging a sword, he's swinging the family name. Let's talk about what makes this warrior from the Daggerheart Quickstart Adventure both a powerhouse and a handful. Today, we're going over the human warrior character from the Quickstart Adventure for Daggerheart, Sablewood Messengers. Now, this free downloadable adventure comes with 5 pre-made characters that are made to go with this adventure. Let's dive into his abilities. Now, Garrick Reed is a highborn human warrior for this Daggerheart Quickstart Adventure. He is of the Call of the Brave subclass. And let's talk a little bit about the blade and bone domains that make up the warrior. If you look at pages 24 and Daggerheart core rulebook, right, this is where all the different domains are, and the domain circle that you can look at them in. The warrior shares the bone domain with a ranger, and then they also share the blade domain with the guardian. Now check each of these out. The blade domain says this is the domain of weapon mastery. Whether by steel, bow, or perhaps a more specialized arm, those who follow this path have the skill to cut short the lives of others. Wielders of blade dedicate themselves to achieving inexorable power over death. And now here's what the domain of bone says. Bone is the domain of tactics in the body. Practitioners of this domain have an uncanny control over their own physical abilities and an eye for predicting the behaviors of others in combat. Adherents to bone gain an unparalleled understanding of bodies and their movements. Kind of makes sense how that one's also paired with Ranger, and the Blade one makes sense how it's also paired with the Guardian. So the Warrior is kind of a really nice blend of both of those. So let's go over the cards that come with these. You remember that Daggerheart comes with cards that you can have down on the table with you, whether you're playing online or in person. And first off, Garrick here is a human. All right, as far as his ancestry goes. So for this human, human gives you an ability called High Stamina. It says you gain additional stress slot at character creation. That's pretty cool. And you may know that stress is one of the resources you can spend in Daggerheart to activate different abilities, or the GM may end up giving you stress if something stressful happens in the story. So the more stress slots you have, the better, because once those slots are filled up, if you take any more, you have to take a hit point of damage instead. So that's pretty interesting. It also has a feature called adaptability. When you fail a roll that utilized one of your experiences, you can mark a stress to re-roll. That's really cool. Daggerheart uses these experiences, which are not super specific, but not incredibly vague, kind of somewhere in the middle. A name of an experience your characters had in the past that they can apply that experience, like that knowledge and wisdom they gained from that past experience, to what's going on right now. So you spend hope points to be able to use your experience to get a bonus on your die roll. So this is basically saying if you used an experience and you still failed the roll, you can actually spend a stress to re-roll. So that's pretty cool. It's kind of looks at the adaptability of humans, right? Really interesting. I like that. Now, one of the things I want to do with going over these characters is a lot of times you don't know which one of these characters you'd like to play because you're not really sure how the mechanics of Daggerheart work yet, right? Because this is why you're probably playing a quick start adventure. So that's why as we go over these cards, I want to kind of explain a little more about what these things mean. We could just go through the cards and I just read them and you're like, well, I don't even know what an experience is, or why am I marking stress for that? So we're going to go over that kind of stuff in this video. So that's what Garrick gets for being a human with human ancestry there. The next thing we're going to go over is the fact that he is from the highborn community. It says being a part of a highborn community means you're accustomed to a life of elegance, opulence, and prestige within the upper echelons of society. So he comes from some type of like noble background here. So being of the highborn community, and all these cards have really, really amazing artwork on them. They're great. says you get an advantage called privilege, or an ability, I guess. And it says you have advantage on rolls to consort with nobles, negotiate prices, or leverage your reputation to get what you want. That's really cool. So having advantage on your roll in Daggerheart, you may remember in a system like D&D, it just gives you an extra die to roll and you get to take the higher of them. But you already have 2 dice to roll in Daggerheart. You have your 2d12s and you add those together and add a modifier. So advantage works different in Daggerheart. For advantage or disadvantage, you add a d6. I shouldn't say add. You include a d6 in your roll. If you have advantage, you add it into the total. If you had disadvantage, you subtract it from the total. So this allows you to have your 2d12s, your hope and your fear die, and a d6 to also add in when you're consorting with nobles, negotiating prices, or leveraging your reputation to get what you want. That's a highborn. That's very cool. Next thing we're going to go over is that this warrior is the Call of the Brave subclass. So I'm going to go over this one and then I'll talk a little bit more about some of the things that are also on his character sheet before we hit his special abilities from the Bone and Blade decks. So Call of the Brave for a warrior has 2 different features. The first one is called Courage, and it says when you fail a roll with fear, you gain hope. That is actually an amazing feature for this because he's so courageous, because he's a warrior. So not only is the DM getting fear, but you also get hope whenever you roll with fear. So you're constantly racking up the hope points, which means you have the opportunity to spend more of them more often because you're constantly going to get them back. Every time you make a roll, you're going to be getting hope, unless it's a reaction roll. Those don't generate hope and fear in this system. Okay, so the other ability it has is called Battle Ritual. Once per long rest, before you attempt something incredibly dangerous or fight off against a foe that clearly outmatches you, describe what ritual you perform or preparations you make. And when you do, you can clear 2 stress and gain 2 hope. That's really neat too, because you want more hope and you want less stress. So basically, as a warrior, you're describing what you're doing to prepare for battle in like a ritualistic way, right? Against somebody who clearly outmatches you or an incredibly dangerous situation. I think that one's really neat too. That's really good preparation, and it makes sense for what somebody who is a warrior is. So that's really neat. Now, I've mentioned in the other videos that this is the foundation card for Call of the Brave, if you've chosen this subclass. Now, the Quickstart Adventure is meant to be a one-shot, so you're only ever going to have this foundation card. But I wanted to mention, in case you choose to keep playing Garrick Reed in another adventure, or your DM decides to continue on more adventures in the Sablewood Forest, there are actually ways, if your character levels up, to go into a specialization of Call of the Brave or a mastery level of Call of the Brave. These are the other options that are available for this subclass as you get into the higher tiers. There's 10 different levels of character in Daggerheart, but they've divided it into 3 tiers. So at the first tier, you would just have this foundation card and those abilities. But as you go into tier 2 and tier 3, if you choose, you don't have to, you can pick other things to do with your character, but you could choose to do the specialization of Call of the Brave. And that's what this gives you. Rise to the challenge, it's called. You're vigilant in the face of mounting danger. When you have 2 or fewer hit points unmarked, you get to roll a d20 as your hope die. That's pretty amazing. So there, in Daggerheart, when you fill up your hit point boxes is bad, right? When you get them all filled up completely is when your character dies. So as this is saying, when you have 2 or fewer left unmarked, so meaning you're getting really close to having them all marked and dying, you can actually swap out your D12 hope die for a D20. So you're still rolling the D12 as the fear die, but a D20 as a hope, that it really increases your odds of rolling with hope more often, having the hope die be higher, right, on the result, because that die now goes all the way up to 20 instead of 12. So that's really cool. That's the specialization of Call of the Brave. And if you go into tier 3 with this character and choose the Call of the Brave Mastery card, you actually get camaraderie. Your unwavering bravery is a rallying point for your allies. You can initiate a tag team role 1 additional time per session. Now, if you're not familiar, tag team is a action that the group can take. No, it's not a group action. A tag team is just you and one other person. So, well, it's a tag team, right? And usually you can only do that once per session. But if you have camaraderie, you now get to do that a second time per session, right? So that's neat. Now, doing a tag team does usually cost 3 hope. Whoever's initiating the tag team has to spend 3 hope to get the tag team going. What tag team does, it's really cool. It actually allows both of you to make action rolls. You can choose whoever's action roll results you want to apply to the both of you. And if it was an attack, you get to add all the damage together and you both do that amount of damage. So a tag team is really cool, really powerful, and that's why you can only do it once per session. But this guy or this character gets to do it twice. It says additionally, when an ally initiates a tag team roll with you, they only have to spend 2 hope to do so instead of the normal 3. So that's really cool. So that's the different levels of Call of the Brave. And remember, Garrick has this foundation one, which gives him courage and the battle ritual. So a few other things I want to point out here on the character sheet for Garrick Reed. He starts with some leather armor, right, which has thresholds of 6 and 13. And then you always add your level to your armor thresholds. So under his threshold, what do you want to call that thing? Scale, I guess, a threshold scale. His thresholds are 7 and 14 because his armor is 6 and 13, right? Remember, we add our level onto that. It also has a base armor score of 3, so that means he has 3 armor slots that he can use. And he has a starting evasion of 11. This means that when the DM is controlling an adversary that is making attack roll against him, he has to roll an 11 or higher. 1 to 10 would miss him. So another cool thing in here I want to talk about is every character has a hope feature that they get to spend 3 hope on and activate something that only their class of character can do. And for warriors, it's called No Mercy. It states, spend 3 hope and get a +1 bonus to your attack rolls until your next rest. That's really cool. Now, granted, this does cost 3 hope, but everybody's hope feature costs 3 hope. But getting +1 to all attack rolls until your next rest, that's great. I mean, it doesn't say long rest, it says next rest. So I even a short rest is going to make this feature expire. But that's really neat to get +1 on everything because you're showing no mercy. I love that. Now, Garrick here, he also is carrying a long sword. And interestingly enough, this warrior, and if you think about it, it kind of ties in with the sense of him having this bone domain, right? And it was all about how your body moves. Is his ability with his sword is actually agility. It's not a strength-based weapon. It's an agility weapon for him. And that's why he has a +2 to agility. That is his highest modifier. In Daggerheart, you don't roll for stats and then choose where to put them and then look up what the modifier is. You just have a bunch of modifiers to distribute. So everybody gets a -1, 2 zeros, 2 +1s, and a +2. So for this warrior, his +2 is in agility. That's what makes the most sense for him because his main weapon is an agility-based weapon. And that weapon does 1d8 +3 physical damage for him. And Garrick here also has some experiences available. I just briefly talked a minute ago about experiences, and these are kind of things from your character's past that they learned that they can apply to the current situation. So he has 2 experiences, and they both give him a +2 bonus. Whenever you want to use an experience on a roll, you have to spend a hope, and you get to apply this extra bonus. And that's why they make them like not super specific, because you might have limited situations in which to use it, but they don't make them incredibly vague. They're a little vague, but not like ridiculously vague. And so they don't apply to everything, but you do have to spend the hope to activate them. So his first one is called Affable. And I will tell you right now, I looked up what affable means. And it says an affable person is someone who is friendly, good-natured, and easy to talk to. They are approachable and create a welcoming atmosphere through their pleasant and warm demeanor. So anytime that might apply in a situation, which kind of ties in with his noble background, right? And being that highborn and getting advantage on rolls to consort with nobles and things. If the player playing him wants to spend a hope to apply affable, he'd get a +2 to the roll. His other one is called Hit Them Hard. That's really cool. So one applies to social situations and one applies to combat situations. This is really neat. I think those are two great experiences that they put in here for Garrick here. Now, next I want to go over some class features. Now, we have abilities that we're going to go over that came out of the Blade and Bone domain decks, but the class of warrior gets a couple class features that don't come on cards, but they are right on the character sheet. The first one is Attack of Opportunity. Reading this for the first time, because I haven't fully read the entire Daggerheart book yet, made me realize, oh my gosh, not everybody gets attacks of opportunity. This is something specific to the warrior. That's awesome. I love that. And it states that when an adversary within melee range attempts to leave that range, so again, they're going to move from melee either away to very close, close, far, very far, make a reaction roll using a trait of your choice against their difficulty. Choose one effect on a success or choose two if you critically succeed, and then it gives 3 effects to choose from. They can't move from where they are. You deal damage to them equal to your primary weapon's damage, or you move with them. This is so cool because in D&D, Attack of Opportunity is just, they try to move away, you can try to hit them. You might miss, you might hit, okay? But this literally will prevent them from moving, or you get to move with them, so you're still in melee, or you can choose to do the damage part. And it doesn't even say that you have to roll for the damage. It says you deal damage equal to your primary weapon's damage. That's kind of crazy. So there's 3 options, and as long as you succeed at this reaction roll against their difficulty, you can choose one of those. And if you crit, you actually get to choose 2 out of the 3. I'm super excited about that. This is really actually making me want to play this warrior, or at least build a warrior with this ability and play a Daggerheart game. So the other class feature that warrior gets is called Combat Training. You ignore burden when equipping weapons. Now, I did look that up real quick. I think I have one of the ribbons of the Daggerheart book here the weapon tables. God, I love that this book has 2 ribbons. Your weapons have different, what do I want to call them? Different statistics? Yeah, they're under weapon statistics. And they have a feature called burden. And it says a weapon's burden notes how many hands it takes to wield it. Weapons are either one-handed or two-handed, okay? And it will tell you that the chart of weapons in here on page 115 is where they start. It has the columns for the name, the trait, the range it can be used, how much damage it does, and then the burden. So it says one-handed or two-handed. And he has a longsword, and a longsword is two-handed. So that is its burden. So it takes both hands to wield a longsword. But because he has combat training, it says you ignore burden when equipping weapons. So this guy, because he's a warrior, can have his longsword in one hand. So he could literally have a shield in the other hand. He could have another weapon in the other hand. That's kind of crazy. It says when you deal physical damage, gain a bonus to your damage roll equal to your level. This is great. This all makes sense. It's called combat training. It's because a warrior is very well trained in combat. So why wouldn't he be able to wield a two-handed weapon in one hand? Or why wouldn't he be able to do extra physical damage? I love it. That's great. Now, you may remember I talked in the past videos as well about questions and connections. So all of these characters in the Quickstart Adventure come with like a little background sheet about them and about the things that they can do, but then it also has a question because Daggerheart's a very narrative-driven game. So it wants you to answer some questions that can help tie into the story and make the roleplay part really smooth and fun and easy. So the question, oh, I got up on the wrong person here. That's Marlo. Let me go back down. When I get to his background, where is his question? I lost him. Oh, no, I was on the right page. I saw Marlo and I thought I was on Marlo's page. It's a question about Marlo. Marlo, you may remember from the previous video. I have another video about Marlo and I will put that right up here so you can click on that and watch that. She is the elf sorcerer in this campaign, little mini one shot, okay? And she is the personal wizard to the king. And in this adventure, the king has asked your party to deliver a crate with something in it to a town in Sablewood. So she gathered the party together and you're one of the party members. So it says, what has Marlo asked of you previously that made this mission difficult to say yes to? That's interesting, right? I love that they didn't say which made it difficult to say no, like you were so on board with doing it. It said, what has Marlo asked you to do before that made this mission difficult to agree to do? That's interesting. All right, let me know in the comments down below what kind of answers to this question you would come up with if you choose to play Garrick in this adventure. All right, so then it also asks you to create some connections with other characters at the table. You don't have to do it for every character. It asks you to at least do one, but I do find it's more fun if you actually come up with a connection to all the characters. And all these questions for each pre-made character are all different. So it wants you to know which character each of these relationships goes with. The first one is, I'll keep your secret. The second one is, I see you trying your best. And the third one is, we need to put our feelings aside. Wow, all of those are so open-ended and very, like, so great for, like, coming up with something creative to tie you to another character at the table and give you lots of role-playing opportunity. Really neat. I love that. Okay, let's go back to Garrett's actual character sheet, and we're going to talk about his loadout, okay, which are his cards. And again, we already went over the fact that he is human ancestry, he is of highborn community, and he is a Call of the Brave subclass. So the last two cards to go over are the domain cards that were chosen for this character for being of the Bone and Blade domains. So let's do the Blade one first. All Blade cards are red with this little like axe up in the corner. And this one has a 1 up in the corner because it's for level 1 characters. As you have to get up to the higher levels to be able to choose some of the domain cards. You can always choose from lower than your current level, but you can't choose any of the level 2 cards until you are a level 2 character. So this ability is called Not Good Enough, and it says when you roll your damage die, you can re-roll any 1s or 2s. Ooh, oh my gosh. That's so good. I seem to recall, right, don't halflings in D&D get to re-roll 1s, but it's because they're lucky? This one has to do with warriors rolling damage. Like, when the heck would a warrior ever do so little damage, it's saying. So like, hey, re-roll that 1 or 2. That's awesome. That's great. My question is this: how do you interpret this? It doesn't say that you have to take the second roll. It just says you get to re-roll any 1s or 2s. That's almost so open-ended that if you always get to re-roll any 1s or 2s, even if when you re-roll them, you get a 1 or a 2 again. It's kind of like keep rolling them until you get something higher. I don't know. What do you think? Let me know. Is that how you would do it for your game? I think I would try that at my table and see what happens. See if it starts to be a little too overpowered and if it needs adjusting. But that would be awesome. It literally just says when you roll your damage dice, re-roll 1s and 2s. That kind of implies just keep re-rolling and re-rolling and re-rolling until you don't have any 1s and 2s. Not all of the dice, just the 1 and the 2, right? That's awesome. Okay, next, from the Bone domain, right? So Bone domain cards are gray, and they have a couple little like crossed blades up there in the corner. Is an ability called I See It Coming. When you're targeted by an attack made from beyond melee, you can mark a stress to roll a d4 and gain a bonus to your evasion equal to the result. That's cool. I like how it's called I See It Coming. So this guy is so trained to be such an amazing warrior, right? And remember, that also the Bone domain is shared with rangers. So it's interesting because you're talking about ranged attacks here, right? So it's an attack made from beyond melee. And it's called You See It Coming because you're so aware as this trained warrior that if someone tries to attack you from beyond melee, if you want to, and you have to have the stress available to spend, you can mark a stress and add a d4 to your evasion. So it like lessens the chance that they'll hit you. That's really cool too. I like that a lot. I'm actually really excited about it. Well, normally when I see like a warrior or a fight or some kind of tank or whatever, I'm like, I don't know. I kind of like playing like partial casters that are good at fighting if they have to, but also really good at magic. But this one sounds really neat. I would really enjoy playing this one. Let me see. There were some other things I wanted to go over in the book here. There's some amazing art in here, but there's also some other questions available. If you go to page 48, where the warrior class starts, there's some other background questions on here and other connections. So if you don't want to use the ones that were in there, you could try some of these, but it also always says you can create your own questions as well. So that is Garrick Reed, the highborn human warrior for the Daggerheart Quickstart Adventure. If you found this video helpful, please make sure you give it a thumbs up, hit the like button, and consider subscribing to the channel. Here at Kristen's Epic Adventures, we go over all things TTRPGs, all different kinds of game systems. We break down the rules, talk about tips and tricks, and sometimes even have unboxings and reviews. So if that's right up your alley, you found a home here, go ahead, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you know when the new videos come out. I hope you enjoyed this video about Garrick. So for the pre-made characters in Daggerheart, we still have the Qatari Wildborn Ranger to go over, and the Giant Ridgeborn Guardian. And then we'll have covered all 5 of the pre-generated characters for this quick start. Next, you're going to want to watch one of the videos on the next screen. Go ahead and click that, and I'll meet you there.